What is going on, Patriots fans? This is Jason Cole back with another edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Today, we're coming at you with 5 targets for the Patriots on the defensive side of the ball. Last week, we did the offensive targets, talked about some of those. If you haven't gone and watched that video, make sure you go over and find that one. And then, of course, like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts on some of these targets, who you'd like the Patriots to sign as a free agent on the defense side of the ball. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. This video is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. At Underdog Fantasy, you can pick higher or lower on 2 or more players for your chance to win 20, 30, or even 1,000 times your money in a single night. The best part about Underdog Fantasy is it's available in 33 of the 50 states. So what are you waiting for? Use code PATSDRIVE and get your first deposit matched up to $1,000 and join the millions of fans who have won on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to download the app on the App Store or go to UnderdogFantasy.com. Okay, jumping right into this. First thing I want to talk about, Mike Vrabel had a press conference today. He talked about how this roster was going to look drastically different than what it does right now come August. So I think that's exciting news for Patriots fans, either on the offensive or defensive side of the ball or both, that there's some changes coming both in the free agency and then obviously the draft. So Cole, who is the first target? We're kind of starting at number 5. I mean, all these guys are guys we would like to see. It's not like, hey, this is the 5th guy, but 5 guys. Who's one of the targets that we're going to start with?
Yeah, that first one is going to be Milton Williams. Just kind of finishing up on your Vrabel note, though. He also said he expects the Patriots to be aggressive in free agency. So that's something you also like to hear. But yeah, Milton Williams, guy for the Eagles, plays on the interior. He was one of the highest graded pass rushers from the defensive tackle position in the NFL. Had a 91 pass rush grade. He's not as good in the run game, but overall, I mean, especially during the postseason, he was great. 6 sacks in 2024, 7 assisted, had a forced fumble. He's just a guy who seemed to really grow this year into a bigger role. And just thinking about him paired next to Barmore, those two as pass rushers combined is a scary sight, especially on like 3rd down and stuff. I can understand people might have some concerns about the run game in general. And if you're going to go pay a guy on the interior, maybe have him be a little more balanced with a guy like Barmore, who's more of a pass rusher as well. So that's one thing that I think you can take into consideration there. We still had Javon on this roster. We signed him to an extension last year or the year before. So he's still on the roster as a run stuffing defender, but I can understand people maybe wanting to lean in a different direction. But if you're going for one of the best defensive tackles on the market, this guy is it this year.
And I think that it's interesting to note the Patriots under Belichick and Mayo last year were predominantly a 3-3-5 type defense. Mike Vrabel, what him and DC Terrence Williams has ran for the Titans is a 4-2-5. So you're going to be seeing 2 true interior defensive linemen on the field at most times. So adding a guy like Milton Williams gives you a little bit concern in the run game. I think that like if you're talking about it, if Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are off the board, maybe Mason Graham's the option for him in the draft. And then he's a little bit better in the run than what I think Milton Williams is. But Milton Williams and Christian Barmore are going to give you pass rushing abilities. We'll talk about another guy we think they're going to sign. If you can push the pocket with these two, force it to the outsides, your edge rushers, Keon White, and the guy that we will talk about in a minute if they were to sign him, or maybe you draft another guy in the 2nd or 3rd round. There's, tons of options when you have interior pressure, or if the guys up the edge get it, like we saw in the Super Bowl, the quarterback steps up, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore right there. I think it adds a dynamic to this defense. And I do think Vrabel wants to build this thing from the front, starting in the trenches on both sides of the ball. That's how he's done it before in Tennessee. They had Jeffrey Simmons there, who obviously was an animal. And so maybe they want to add another guy with Christian Barmore, plus his health injury, right? Like his health, we assume he's going to be back with blood clots, right? But he missed significant time last year, and you worry about that. Hopefully, he comes back and can play in all the games next year. But that is another concern right there. You can't just assume that he is going to be coming back to full health and nothing's going to be wrong again. So Hopefully he is healthy, but I think adding Milton Williams with Christian Barmore on the interior would be scary for a lot of opposing offenses, especially in the pass game.
Yeah, and having Terrell Williams as your new DC, being a guy who's coached D-line a lot and just came from Detroit coaching D-line, they've talked about wanting to be aggressive, and I think adding to that defensive interior, adding to the edge, just that D-line in general. Mike Vrabel has touched on so many times already this offseason, and the limited times he's been interviewed, every time he's talking about building through the trenches, and that comes on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we know what they need to do to protect Drake May, but defensively, we had one of the worst defensive lines in football last year. So adding to that front, especially if you're switching, you're gonna have 4 guys up front. Having those 2 on the interior, that would certainly be a good combo.
Let's stick with another Eagles guy. A lot of people are going to say, hey, do you worry about taking all these Eagle guys because that defense was so good? Maybe they're not going to be good outside of it. I still think these guys are good football players. Like I'm in the business of wanting to sign good football players. Okay. Yeah, they were on a loaded defense, but these guys can still play ball. Like they would improve and be better than what the Patriots currently have on their roster. That's what you got to look at. Zack Bon is a guy at the linebacker position who I talked about. When you're going from a 3-3-5 to a 4-2-5, you need athletic, rangy linebackers. Zack Bon had the highest defense grade amongst linebackers and the highest coverage grade amongst linebackers. So a guy that can do both, run and pass. He revitalized his career in Philadelphia there, where he, kind of signed there on, a cheap deal and ended up being a Pro Bowler, ended up winning a Super Bowl with them, had a career year there, had 4 sacks, 141 total tackles. This is a guy that I could see. Obviously, Sione Takitaki just got cut for the Patriots. So you are kind of like, hey, well, is it just Javon Bentley? He's not as rangy as a Zack Bon. When the Titans were really good with Vrabel there last year, they had Azeez Al-Shahir, who was a guy there, and now he's with Houston, who made a name for himself. Like they signed him. He was athletic. He was rangy. He played fast and violent. Like we've already heard Terrell Williams and Mike Vrabel say they want their defenders to be. So getting a guy like Zack Bon in here, seeing how he could change this defense, add a little more range to the linebacker position than what we necessarily have had in the past from the Patriots, I think would be advantageous for them also.
Yeah, and he really struggled with the Saints. He was drafted out of Wisconsin. I remember in that draft, Zack Bon being a guy that Patriots were thought to maybe be targeting, but he ended up falling all the way to, I think, 3rd round, which was kind of unexpected. He just kind of kept falling. But like you mentioned, that's exactly what I was going to say. If they're moving away from their typical Belichick-style defense, the Javon Bentleys of the world are probably not going to be your prototypical linebackers anymore. It's going to be these guys that can cover and that are really well-rounded, and that's what he is. I mean, between his pass rush and run defense grade, they're very similar. He's just a well-rounded player who's absolutely spectacular in coverage, and just seeing him in this Eagles defense, he looked like a completely different person than those years that he was with the Saints, where he really struggled. So they got him for a steal in free agency on a 1-year deal. He proved himself this year, and now he's going to do a lot better in free agency this year and have a lot more options.
There's a couple corners that I really like. I mean, we'll obviously talk about the one. I think that like Charvarius Ward is a good option, bigger, longer corner. You could take a chance on, a Rasul Douglas type guy, one of those. The number one option for us at the cornerback position is an AFC East rival from the New York Jets, DJ Reed. He's 28 years old. He's been good next to Sauce Gardner. I think you bring him in. He's played predominantly outside corner. He is only 5'9", 190. So you're like, oh man, that smaller frame, is he a slot guy? No, well, he played this year over 900 snaps at wide corner, like outside corner. You don't worry about that. That's what he's going to be for the Patriots if they were to sign him. I still think this team is missing a true number 2 corner. I like what Alex Austin has done. Marcus Jones is, I think, the slot corner. This gives them the ability to let Jonathan Jones walk. But adding another guy like DJ Reed on the outside, that one is familiar with the AFC East because he's played in it for so long and has had success in there. Had a little bit of a down year this year compared to what he had in 2023, but the whole Jets team kind of did. I think that he would be a guy that I would be really interested in. Right now, they're saying his market value, of course, this is on Sport Track, his saying is about 15 million average annual salary a year. So they're projecting a 4-year, $50 or $60 million contract. I mean, I don't know your thoughts on that. I think that that's about fair for a number 2 corner. We'll see. That would take him through his, if you sign him for a 4-year deal, his 32-year-old season. I don't know if they would want to lock him up for that long at that age, but that's kind of what the going price is right now, for what people are saying it would be.
Yeah, PFF has it at 3 years, $14 million a year. So that would be more appealing to me. Yeah, taking it through your 31 season and a little bit less. That would certainly be more appealing. But yeah, like you said, that whole Jets team in general, just there was so much changing on the coaching staff with Saleh getting fired midway through the year. I just think there's a lot of things going on in that organization that just aren't good. And him, if you're signing him to be your number 1 corner, I can see you being a little bit concerned about the size. Okay, 5'9", he's our only like boundary corner. We have Christian Gonzalez, who's 6'1". He can go up against the AJ Browns. He can go up against the T Higgins, whoever, Jamar Chase. Like, he can take some of these taller receivers. And if there's a team that has a T Higgins and a Jamar Chase, you can put Gonzalez on the bigger guy if you feel more comfortable, and then have DJ Reed on the smaller of the two. Great corner. I think he's pretty versatile. Him and Sauce Gardner have just been an elite duo. And I still think he's got a lot of good football left. So if you can get him on a 3-year deal, having him paired with Christian Gonzalez, I think that really solidifies a position of need that a lot of people don't talk enough about. I mean, this cornerback room, you do have Christian Gonzalez, which is amazing, but we are really missing at that cornerback 2 spot. And if Gonzalez goes down, that room is going to be an absolute mess. So I think this would be a good signing, DJ Reed here.
I want a little bit more depth in the secondary and a little more top tier depth. I like I said, I like Alex Austin. He's been good, but if you elevate him into a true corner 2, and like you mentioned, if you have to play Jamar Chase and T Higgins, can he hold up against that? I think DJ Reed would be able to hold up in a lot better situation. Think about when you play the Dolphins, right? Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, depending on what that situation is, but you need 2 corners, and I would feel comfortable, especially if you can figure out the pass rush and DJ Reed, Christian Gonzalez holding up in coverage, making, maybe a little more type of coverage sack. So I really like that idea.
It's crazy how many teams have 2 great receivers and we can't even get 1. It's like, I mean, come on, share a little bit. It's
don't remind me. So, but who's the next guy for us? Another AFC East rival, a target right here. Who do we have next?
Yeah, Javon Holland. He's safety for the Dolphins. He's fantastic. PFF had him graded a little lower this year than he has been in the past, but he's been a guy who is that true free safety, and he started out playing mainly like 90% free safety snaps his first couple of seasons in the NFL. And as he's kind of evolved 2023 and 2024, he's kind of been more of a 60-40 where he's playing free safety most of the time, but he can mix in the box. He played 434 snaps at free safety this year, played 235 in the box and 142 at slot corner. So you can kind of mix and match him all over the place. He's really talented. He's explosive. He's been a guy that he's one of those guys where when we play the Dolphins every week, it's like, you're not super excited to go against this guy. So if you can pluck him from a division rival, that's always a plus. Not only they're losing a guy, but you're gaining him. It's kind of twice as good. So Javon Holland, I think, would be a really explosive addition to this team. And we have needed a true free safety since Devin McCourty retired. So this would certainly fill that role. I know we have Duggar. I know we have Jabril Peppers, but these are 2 kind of different types of safeties. Peppers and Duggar are more of those physical in the box guys. And switching to this Mike Vrabel defense, if you're looking for more athletic kind of coverage type linebackers, you can rotate Peppers and Duggar at linebacker position once in a while if you want to. So I think this just gives you even more versatility. Will they pay a 3rd safety? I'm not sure, but this is not really an overlap with Duggar and Peppers in my mind. I think Javon Holland can do a lot more things, and he also is kind of more of that true free safety, and that really helps fix the back end of a defense. Mike Vrabel had Kevin Byard when he was in Tennessee, and he was a stud. So maybe they're not the same type of player necessarily, but having that true stud free safety certainly helps your team out.
Yeah, I mean, and Javon Holland's 24 years old. Jabril Peppers is going to be 30. So, yeah, I mean, you sign up Javon Holland, and, I love Jabril Peppers, but maybe he's, a little one of those guys you can cut ties with in a year or two. I think it gives you versatility. It's important to talk about, hey, I don't think the Patriots sign all 5 of these guys. It would be great, but hey, if you take a Javon Holland, you can make Duggar or Peppers into that versatile hybrid linebacker type guy, which we think Mike Vrabel likes to have in there. You can have Juwan Bentley in the middle. You can have Duggar and or Peppers, surrounding him and playing that sideline to sideline type guy, if they feel comfortable with them holding up in the run game. So, I think that the true free safety thing is a big time thing. He had a 11.3% force and completion rate from the free safety position. That's elite, right? He has that ability to play in the post to get from hash to hash even further to the numbers to the alley. So I like that. I like the idea of bringing in what we've been lacking since McCourty isn't there. And I think if you sign him, maybe it means that, a linebacker like Bon or someone isn't one they would spend more money on. Maybe they would. Maybe they totally want to. But it gives you the flexibility to get that more athletic guy in Kyle Duggar or Jabril Peppers in a more defined role in the box instead of so much, of different roles and positions we've seen them be utilized before in the Patriots defense. So,
yeah, and just touching on the on the safety discussion, like you mentioned, Peppers 29, going to be 30. Duggar's going to be 29 next month as well. You don't think of him as an older guy, but he was an older prospect when we drafted him.
Yep.
So he's another guy. I know we just extended him, but he's another guy that's getting up there in age, and especially the way that him and Peppers play, you don't know how long that will really last. Playing with that physicality and stuff. So, and like you mentioned earlier, Vrabel said this team's going to look a lot different. We don't know what that means. That could mean some guys that we don't expect to get cut. So if you replace one of those two with Javon Holland, that could be an interesting way to go about it.
And then the last guy for us is, in my opinion, a guy that made himself the most money this season, especially off the last game of the year. We're talking about a lot of Eagles guys. Here's another one. Josh Sweat. I think that this team needs to add edge rushers. It's looking less and less likely Abdul Carter is going to be there available at pick 4. It could still happen. Obviously, we want 2 quarterbacks to go in the top 3, which I believe is still a possibility. I know you texted me earlier today and said it's looking less and less likely. I still think the Giants and one of those teams, especially if the Titans do go, Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at pick 1, with the cap situation the Browns are in, they have to take a quarterback if Cam Ward or someone's there, in my opinion. Maybe they won't, but yeah, Schefter did say that.
Like 1 hour after I texted you that, Schefter comes out and says, "This is what I'm most confident in this offseason, the Browns taking quarterback at 2." I'm like, okay, that's great. I would love that, but
yeah. So, I mean, it's looking less and less likely that Abdul Carter will be there. That's why I'm moving to Josh Sweat, which I think the Patriots, other than the Falcons, they had the least amount of pressures and sacks last year on quarterbacks. They just consistently did not get to the quarterback enough. And Josh Sweat is one of those guys who did it at a high rate. He did it in the Super Bowl. He was really good for the Eagles last year. Probably going to demand a ton of money. I think with his age and, how good he played this year, he's got to be the top defensive end on the board. I don't know what PFF says his market value is. The one I'm looking at right now,
3 years, 18 a year.
That's exactly what it's. 3 years, 18.8 million a year. But he's 27 years old, so you lock him up until he's 30. He's not one of those older guys like some of the edge rushers you're looking at. Chase Young is a younger guy, but he kind of hasn't had that production yet. You got like DeMarcus Lawrence, who's 33. You got Khalil Mack, who's in there, a couple other guys. So it's like, this guy's got to be the top edge rusher on the market. And so if the Patriots could get their hands on him, kind of revitalize that pass rush that they didn't have last year, I think that would be another big time addition.
Yeah, Josh Sweat was awesome. I mean, he was all over the place, especially in the Super Bowl. So yeah, I certainly think that pairing an edge rusher like him, if you put him on one side, that all that does is help out Keon White. And if you add to the middle, whether that's a Mason Graham or whether that's a Milton Williams, this defensive line could be completely transformed from where it was last year. And then adding Barmore back in, he barely played this season. Like you mentioned, couple games from the blood clots, and then he was back out. So I really hope he's healthy and ready to go. He's a tremendous young player, Barmore, and just thinking about basically having an entire new defensive line around Keon White, if you go and get some of these guys, it is really intriguing. So yeah, Josh Sweat, a guy who can certainly pin his ears back and rush the passer, but he also had his second highest run defense grade in his whole career this year. So he can kind of hold his own in both. Maybe that's because of all the talent around him. I mean, the Eagles had just such a good defensive line and just their front seven in general. So that could play a factor. But just to throw out a couple other names, as far as targets, Asante Samuel Jr. is one guy who's still kind of young. He's had some up and down years. I still think he's talented. Don't think it would cost you as much. So there's some fallback options for some of these guys. Like you mentioned, Chase Young, if you don't get Sweat, maybe you take a shot on him. Yeah, Asante Samuel, Travarius Ward, Carlton Davis. There's some options there at corner as well. So plenty of it feels like much more talent on the defensive side of the ball if you want to go grab some good players than there is in the offensive side of the ball. Trey Smith might be going back to the Chiefs. Ronnie Stanley might be going back to the Ravens. T. Higgins is probably staying with the Bengals or maybe getting traded. I don't know. But you're not seeing these guys talented on offense hitting the market like you are on defense with some of them.
Yeah, it's a little bit disappointing for sure. Offensively, again, if you guys have not watched the video we put out last week, those are some offensive targets, defensive ones here. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, let us know below your thoughts on any of these targets. Ideally, I would want the Patriots to sign 2 of these guys. If they could get 3, I'd be stoked. I think it would change the complexion of this defense. One that was bottom half of the year or bottom half of the league last year in a lot of statistical categories. So improving that. Hopefully getting back to the elite Patriots defense. And then obviously Vrabel's a defensive guy. So getting back to those ways and kind of putting your stamp on how you want this brand of football to be played. So appreciate all the support. And until next time, guys, we will talk to you later.